Thank you all for coming. I'm going to introduce everybody, then just make a few brief opening comments, and then have everybody briefly talk, and then after we're all done, we'll open it up for questions. My name is Stephen Brown. I'm Executive Director of the American Civil Liberties Union of Rhode Island. Let me just briefly explain to you what's in the packet that you all should have. At the top is the news release that I think gives the most basic facts you'd like to know about the case. Next is a copy of the complaint. Following that is the incident report that has prompted the filing of this lawsuit. Then there's a statement by Megan Smith. She'll be giving this statement when we get to her. And at the bottom is correspondence we had with the city a month ago, raising concerns about this ordinance. So again, so to my immediate left is Mark Gursky. He is the ACLU volunteer attorney who has filed this lawsuit and will be handling it. Next to him is Michael Montero. He is the plaintiff in this lawsuit. Next to him is Megan Smith, who is a homeless rights advocate, and she'll be giving some comments. And then next to her is Jim Rysick from the Rhode Island, Executive Director of the Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless. So the reason we have all these people here is I want us to be able to talk about this lawsuit in specific and what has prompted it, but we also think it's important to put it in context of what we call the criminalization of poverty that is going on in Rhode Island as well as across the country. I think the timing of the lawsuit is apropos. Everybody is talking about a season of giving, and if you go along any major road, you'll see lots of requests for giving. They're on billboards, big advertisements. Everybody seems to think that's perfectly fine, but if you have one individual seeking to do the same thing on his own, suddenly it becomes a criminal offense, and that's really a lot of what this lawsuit is talking about. The only other point I'll mention before turning it over to Mark is that, as it's indicated in the news release, we do expect this to be the first of other lawsuits. We think it's really important that this issue be addressed. It's not getting any better, and this notion of criminalizing the poor, criminalizing the homeless, is something that needs to be dealt with, and we believe that there are remedies that are available and should be used, and that's what we're hoping to do with this lawsuit and any that follow. With that, I'll turn it over to Mark to briefly discuss what we've done today.
Okay. Well, thanks, Steve. My name is Mark Gursky. I'm a volunteer attorney on the case. And what we've done today is filed a lawsuit that seeks a court declaration that Cranston's ordinance that prohibits solicitation of contributions is unconstitutional. We're asking the court to declare it unconstitutional. We're asking for an injunction against Cranston that would prohibit Cranston from enforcing the ordinance. As you know, this ordinance prohibits an individual or a group from soliciting donations on a public roadway. It prohibits protected free speech because asking for help is a form of free speech. And the ordinance is based on the content of the communication, meaning it prohibits some types of requests and some types of others, and allows others. It prohibits people from requesting donations. It prohibits any types of solicitations for help from a driver or a passenger in a car, whether that car is stopped or whether it's moving. And so what it basically does is it prohibits an individual like Mike from being on the corner asking for donations and asking for help. But it really prohibits anyone from asking for donations. It could be a Little League team. It could be firefighters soliciting for muscular dystrophy. It's vastly overbroad and unconstitutional in our opinion. The other thing that this ordinance does, we think, is allow Cranston to selectively enforce it. What we found is that somebody like Mike is arrested, detained, threatened with prosecution, while other people that are doing the same type of activity that are soliciting donations from maybe more mainstream charities are allowed to continue to do that. We think that's selective enforcement. We think that's unconstitutional. What's happened in recent years is that the United States Supreme Court, the First Circuit Court of Appeals, and federal district courts in Massachusetts have consistently held that when a ordinance like this one prohibits solicitation of donations, those ordinances are strictly scrutinized. And in order to justify an ordinance like this one, Cranston would have to show that it has a compelling state interest, an overwhelming interest in its enforcement. These ordinances are considered presumptively invalid. And so it's not really even a close question in our view that the ordinance itself is unconstitutional. Even if Cranston had a good reason for passing an ordinance like this one, the Constitution requires that Cranston utilize the least restrictive alternative before it prohibits people from exercising their right to free speech. And in this particular case, the ordinance simply prohibits any kind of speech that involves solicitation of donations. There's been a number of cases directly on point, and as I say, we don't even think it's a close case. So what we'll be asking for in the lawsuit is an injunction against Cranston to prohibit them from enforcing the ordinance. And as Steve points out, where other cities and towns have similar ordinances, we're going to be looking at those ordinances very carefully to determine if they're also unconstitutional.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Michael? So if you can just briefly explain, what happened to you, what you've been doing?
Okay, I've been doing this for 10 years now, and for seven and a half years I've never been bothered. But all of a sudden there's a lot of guys and girls from Providence going to Cranston, which means now there's a group of us up there. And ever since that's been happening, they've been harassing me, writing me up. I have to go to court, threatened with fines, and that just doesn't seem right. All them years when I did it before, nobody bothered me because it was only me, and now because there's a group of people going up there, and there's more people, now all of a sudden it's not right. It was right before, but it's not right now. I've had officers actually give me money, buy me coffee, buy me McDonald's. There's a McDonald's right there. And other officers toss me out. I had one officer, a Cranston officer, get out of the car and swearing at me, telling me to get the F out of town. This is like a year and a half ago. And other officers go right by and don't say a word.
Do you want to show the sign?
My sign's pretty simple. I'm disabled and I need help. And that's what my sign says. If my sign said, vote for Hillary, I'm soliciting votes, would that be okay? I know I'm soliciting, but it's true, it's a fact, it's true.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Megan Smith. I'm an outreach worker and a case manager with the House of Hope. And I'm also the co-facilitator of Rhode Island's Homeless Bill of Rights Defense Committee. And these two roles are overlapping because every day when I'm doing outreach, I see people being discriminated against and criminalized because they are perceived as being poor or being homeless. As I've spoken with these individuals on the street, it's been clear that a lot of this criminalization has occurred in our municipal courts and through our municipal ordinances, as it has in Mr. Montero's case. And this Cranston ordinance is yet another example of the ways in which our society criminalizes acts of survival for people who are poor and homeless. The National Law Center on Homelessness and Poverty has documented how these laws are ineffective, costly, and in violation of these individuals' human rights. Giving people a criminal record for doing what is necessary to live only makes it harder for them to access housing, employment, and means of support, and it costs taxpayers and the state more in the process. This criminalization of poverty also makes it harder for me as a service provider to do my job. When the individuals that I work with are forced out of the public eye under fear of harassment or arrest, I cannot engage with them to help them in the process of connecting to housing, healthcare, and income supports. These laws are also discriminatorily enforced, as Mr. Gursky said. I have witnessed multiple instances of individuals soliciting money who appear poor being questioned by police, while firefighters, cheerleaders, and Little Leaguers are allowed to engage in exactly the same conduct without interference. We as a society do not have the right to deny somebody their right to survive and to speak just because we don't like what they have to say or how they look. Poverty should make us uncomfortable, but rather than criminalizing poor person's survival through municipal ordinances, our cities and towns should be investing in housing and social supports. Thank you, Mr. Montero, for coming forward. This issue affects many of the state's most vulnerable residents, and I'm hopeful that this lawsuit may begin to turn the tide in their favor.
Hi, I'm Jim Wright, the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Coalition for the Homeless. First, I want to thank the ACLU for inviting me. Second, I really want to thank Michael for stepping forward and being willing to bring this lawsuit. It's very rare that folks who have little to no power do something like this, so I commend you for that.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Attorney Gursky and Megan Smith for the roles that they're playing. The Coalition for the Homeless, our mission is to seek collaborative and cooperative solutions to homelessness. Ordinances like this are neither. We would rather that municipalities or anyone thinking about a problem in their community step up and ask us and ask others who work in the community with folks to contribute our ideas about solutions and get together to figure out what we can do differently. This being the given season, I need to point out that something like this and a charge and a conviction is the gift that keeps on giving. We have enough barriers to try and find people like Michael and others who are at Harrington Hall and other shelters, housing that is suitable and affordable and safe for them. We certainly don't need increased criminal records that add to those barriers. So we support this lawsuit and thank everyone for bringing it.
Before we open up the questions, I just want to make two factual clarifications. Mr. Montero is not homeless. I mean, this obviously does have a large effect on the homeless. He does need this money to supplement his income. It's been very important for him. Secondly, this incident, he was not actually arrested. He was issued a summons. He was required to appear in court. He was not formally arrested when he was given the summons. So with that, anybody have any questions? We'll try to answer them.
Do you live in Cranston, or where do you live?
I live in Providence.
In Providence, okay. And if I may ask, what is your disability?
I need both my hips replaced. I have avascular necrosis. I move furniture for 32 years. Your body's not made to do that every day of your life.
So you got disability payments?
Yes, I do.
And then you do the panhandling kind of to supplement that?
Yeah, look, at the end of the month I start running out when I run out of money. At the beginning of the month I usually don't go out, but at the end of the month, sometimes it's the 20th, sometimes it's the 24th, it could be the 16th. But when I start running out of money.
How old are you?
57.
Do you usually go to the same site when you do go and
Yeah.
seek donations? Okay. And where is the site again?
So, Plainfield Pike?
Is it, so have you been cited before, or summoned to court before, or arrested?
It's my second time in Cranston.
Second time that you've been, and in the previous occasion, so this is the most recent occasion that the lawsuit is about. When was the previous occasion?
It's about a year before.
Okay.
So June 2014?
June, July.
Mm-hmm.
Not positive on the date.
How much do you typically make when you do the panhandling?
My legs only let me stay up there for an hour at a time. Sometimes it's less, depending on the weather. I'll make $20, $25, even $30.
Mm-hmm. And you find that that's really helpful?
Yes, it is.
That's good.
Can you talk just about how important that is that you're able to communicate with people face-to-face, one-on-one? Because I think that's part of what this is. You're saying that big organizations are allowed to do this and you're not. Can you talk about what that means to you to have that communication with people?
Yeah, well, I don't have too much communication. I stand here with my sign. If they don't roll the window down, they go right by. I don't, move or anything. If they roll the window down, I thank them. They give me money. Some give me a banana, an apple. They give me other things. And that's about the way it goes. I don't have much conversation up there, because usually it's the cars, you know, because when the red light is red, there's only one car right here. And if they're giving me something, they'll roll the window down and ask me how I'm doing. But if they're not, they leave the window open, and the rest of the cars are going by. And, you know, when I stand right here, and if I just do this, the window's right there, I'm on the driver's side, you know, we know what we're doing.
You consider your sign to really be your message. I mean, that's
Exactly, my sign's doing my talking for me.
What would you do without that money supplementing you at the end of the month?
What I'm doing right now, I go without. I haven't been up there since this happened. The judge told me not to go back. I'm not gonna go against the judge's orders. Even the officers, when they tell you, they say, don't come back today. It's to me, you can come back tomorrow, and I do. I'll go back the next day, but I won't come back the same day. You know, I'm respectful of them.
So do you have trouble making ends meet now that you don't have this extra money?
Oh, yeah. I think I have $11 left right now for the rest of the month. But I just make it work.
And what exactly is the lawsuit asking for?
The lawsuit's asking for an injunction against Cranston, preventing them from enforcing their ordinance. It asks for any damages that Michael may have sustained as a result of this. It asks for attorney's fees to reimburse the ACLU and our firm for the time and the cost of filing the lawsuit.
Can you describe the roadway where you do this? Is it a large roadway, or what's the
It's two
physical
lanes in, 2 lanes out.
Okay.
In between the 2 lanes, there's an area probably from here, maybe to the end of the table, you know, grass. And I stand in that area, it's between, you know, and I get the cars coming out.
I see. And there's like a stop sign, stop light?
There's a light.
A light, okay. Is there a shopping center near there? or-
Yeah, there's a Walmart down there, there's a
Okay.
Dollar Tree, McDonald's, there's a Citizens Bank.
Okay.
Have you seen other groups doing this? I know you kind of like mentioned cheerleaders or football teams or firefighters. Do you?
Yeah, a few times when I went up there was already cheerleaders there. Or when they got there, you know, I'd see them get out of the car with their mothers, and I'd just leave and tell them, you know, come on. You gotta let the kids go on first, you know. But I've been up there when they were already there, and I just take the bus back. I don't go out.
And how come you're doing this in Cranston rather than in Providence?
I was doing it in Providence. They arrested me twice, they locked me up.
Okay.
I said, and when they lock you up, it's 10 o'clock, and I do it in the morning. 10 o'clock in the morning, they lock me up for doing this, and I can't get out until the next morning, so I see the judge. That's not good. I don't like that.
When were you arrested in Providence?
It's gotta be 2-3 years ago, or maybe it could have been a year ago. I'm not sure, because I stopped going to Cranston because they were harassing me quite a bit and threatening me, so I left that alone for a while. I came back to Providence, and then I got arrested in Providence twice.
Are there other towns in Rhode Island that, Providence, I don't know if there's an ordinance, but are there other towns where this is going on?
Well, we know there are other communities that do have similar types of ordinances. Providence is the obvious one. We know that Pawtucket also has one. There's been discussion in that city about that city's ordinance. Those are the 2 we know of right now. I have no doubt that there are many others that have similar ordinances. How they get enforced is another question, and I don't know the answer to that right now.
Is there, you mentioned the various other legal cases that have come before the Supreme Court in the First Circuit. Is there an argument that there's a safety issue, a traffic issue, and what have the courts said about that?
The courts have looked at whether an ordinance can be justified because of traffic or safety. And what they say is, first of all, that it needs to be a real traffic or safety issue. It can't be just a contrived issue and an excuse for the ordinance. But where it's been discussed in more detail, what the courts have said is that if there's a traffic or a safety issue, then a city or town needs to deal with traffic or safety. They can't use the First Amendment as a way of an intrusion of the First Amendment as a way of dealing with traffic or safety. And in fact, the case that just was decided out of Worcester, Massachusetts, that was initially considered by the First Circuit Court of Appeals, said exactly that, if a city or town wants to regulate traffic or safety, they can regulate traffic or safety, and they shouldn't use an intrusion on the First Amendment as a way of doing that.
Do you ever?
Do you want to say?
Has anybody ever approached the city council to ask them to reconsider? And if not, how come the city council wasn't involved in this lawsuit? I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing yet, but wouldn't they be the body to go after since they're the ones that potentially passed this?
Well, I'd say no. I think because the city charter in Cranston designates the mayor as the authority that enforces the ordinances, and in his absence, it's the chief of police who named those two individuals as the defendants, and then of course the treasurer, because there's monetary damages involved. In terms of notifying the city council, as Steve pointed out, we did notify the city about a month ago, and we haven't heard back.
Well, we heard back and they were looking into it.
But in terms of going
You're so
before,
lawyerly sometimes. They heard back and they said that they were thinking about it. How's that?
but I mean in terms of going to a meeting and speaking when they have the public comment section, or speaking to local councils, having them advocate on behalf to try to have the ordinance change from within the current system.
I guess if time was not a factor and we had the luxury of lobbying city council members, that would be one approach. But as Steve and Mike have pointed out, this is a way that Mike and others make ends meet, and it's can be a survival issue, and it's also a constitutional and a free speech issue. And under those circumstances, I think it requires some immediate action. I'd also point out to you that the Supreme Court decision that has prompted many of these lawsuits across the country isn't a secret. We lawyers, we read about them, we all know about them, and so for those reasons, we didn't think it was really an appropriate step to go through the legislative process on a town-by-town basis. We thought that the best approach is to notify Cranston about an unconstitutional ordinance, to give them an opportunity to tell us that they won't enforce it, an opportunity that they didn't take, and then to file a lawsuit in the federal court to declare the ordinance unconstitutional and to ask for an injunction against enforcement.
Do you want to say something again?
Well, I just wanted to point out that when these types of things do come to our attention, we certainly let municipalities, city councils know of where we stand on them. We have, as collectively as advocates, done a lot of work in Pawtucket. I know that Newport was considering some things. The smoking ban, the issue that's come up in Providence has been something that we've commented on a lot. Of course, we're a staff of 11, where I have one full-time person and myself who are responsible for monitoring all this, everything that goes on politically and for governmental relations. So it's a capacity issue for us, and so we certainly comment. But I think it is incumbent upon municipalities, when they're targeting or potentially targeting a certain class of people, to reach out to those of them in the community who work regularly with those folks, to ask our opinions and get feedback and input on what they're trying to do. Because again, we can be helpful in avoiding this type of thing if we all come together to figure out a different solution that really works.
I just had a brief comment on the issue, the scope of the panhandling concern that I've seen. Mr. Montero is one of 4 individuals whom I've been with in Cranston Municipal Court this year under the aggressive solicitation, or the solicitation of roadway ordinance. And I'm in Providence Municipal Court every week, and almost every week there's individuals there who are charged with panhandling. That's where my coworker and I were this morning, working with 2
1 in 4 this year? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
So how many people would you say this, like, have you represented in a case like this, or you've worked with?
So just to be clear, I'm not a lawyer, I'm a case manager.
Okay.
But it's something that we encounter, I would say at least, well, again, in Providence, it's essentially a weekly issue. In Cranston, they come to our attention a bit less frequently, but still once every few months.
And is it the same people over and over again, or it's affecting a lot of people?
It's affecting a spectrum of people. And again, the folks that I see are mainly homeless, and recognizing that It's not just an issue of homelessness, it's an issue of poverty more broadly.
What are, you said this is the first in a series of lawsuits, what's your timetable for that? And is it other municipalities that you're going to be suing, or can you talk at all about?
Yeah, right now we're gathering information, doing research, but as I said earlier, we do know that there are other ordinances out there. We know that Providence is one of them. You know, I don't think I'm letting any cats out of the bag. I think Providence is high on the list. And you know, we're going to be doing it as expeditiously as we can, but also as, you know, we want to make sure we do it right. We need to talk with the individuals who are being affected by the enforcement of these laws, and as Megan or as I think Jim mentioned, you know, people are. It takes a lot of courage to be a plaintiff in a lawsuit like this. So it's often hard to get those individuals to agree to be plaintiffs, even if they contact us. You know, it's one thing to say this is a problem, I'd like help. It's another thing to be the name and face on a public lawsuit. So we're going to be looking into all of that. Mark is going to be helping with this. But as I indicated, we do see this as the first of a series. So we think this is a problem statewide. It's not just Cranston. And we hope to do as much as we can to address what we think are very serious constitutional problems with the enforcement of these types of ordinances.
Is there a timeline for when you would be pushing other suits forward?
No, we've not set a timeline, but as I said, it's something that we will be discussing as soon as this is over. Any other comments, questions? All right, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.